I never thought the worst night of my life would start with the smell of my mom's garlic mashed potatoes. It was Thanksgiving. The one day our broken little family pretended everything was fine. I'd spent all morning helping in the kitchen, laughing with Mom while we peeled potatoes and argued over how much brown sugar belonged in the yams. My older brother Ryan hadn't come home for the holidays in 3 years, ever since he made detective. So when he texted that morning saying he was driving in, I actually felt hopeful. Maybe we could finally fix things. See, Ryan and I used to be everything to each other. When Dad left, when Mom worked double shifts, when the bills piled so high we ate cereal for dinner, it was always Ryan and me against the world. He protected me. He promised he always would. But something changed after he put on that badge. He started looking at me differently, like I was a stranger, like I was guilty of something. That evening, the table was set beautifully. Mom had even brought out the good china, the one with the tiny roses she only used for special occasions. Ryan walked in wearing his uniform, pressed shirt, badge gleaming, gun on his hip, and hugged Mom so tight she cried. When he turned to me, his smile didn't reach his eyes. Dinner started normal enough. We passed the turkey, told old stories, laughed too loud at jokes that weren't that funny. Then Ryan cleared his throat. "I have an announcement," he said, standing up. The room went quiet. I smiled, expecting him to say he was engaged or moving closer to home, but he looked straight at me and said, "Emily Rose Carter, you're under arrest." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Mom gasped, my aunt dropped her wine glass, and Ryan, my own brother, pulled out his handcuffs like this was just another day at work. I laughed at first, thought it was a sick joke, but he wasn't laughing. The metal was cold when he snapped the cuffs on my wrist right there between the turkey and the cranberry sauce. "Ryan, stop," I whispered, voice shaking. "This isn't funny." "It's not supposed to be," he said, loud enough for the whole table to hear. 3 years ago, you destroyed evidence in an active investigation. I've been building the case ever since. Tonight, it ends." Destroyed evidence? My mind went blank. I hadn't touched any case. I worked as a paramedic, not a criminal. Mom was crying, begging him to explain. My cousins were filming on their phones, and Ryan, he looked proud, like he'd waited his whole career for this moment. He marched me out of the house in front of our entire family, neighbors peeking through curtains, kids on bikes staring as he put me in the back of his unmarked car. The shame burned worse than the cuffs. At the station, they booked me. Fingerprints, mugshot, cold bench, and a holding cell. Hours went by. I kept waiting for Ryan to walk in and say it was a mistake, that he'd figured it out, that he was sorry. He never came. Instead, I sat there replaying every moment. 3 years ago, that was the night Ryan's partner died during a raid, the night Ryan blamed himself for not securing the scene fast enough, the night he came to my apartment drunk and crying, begging me to help him make it go away. I thought he meant emotionally. I held him while he sobbed. I told him it wasn't his fault, but apparently, in his grief, he'd taken something from the scene. A flash drive with body cam footage that supposedly showed his mistake, and somehow, in his mind, he convinced himself I'd destroyed it to protect him. I didn't. I never even saw it. But Ryan needed someone to blame more than he needed the truth. And I was the easiest target. His little sister, who'd always covered for him, who'd always forgiven him. By morning, I was broken. Not just humiliated, but betrayed on a level I didn't know was possible. The person who was supposed to protect me had used his power to destroy me. All because he couldn't face his own guilt. I stopped crying. Something inside me went very, very still. They moved me to an interrogation room for a final interview. That's when the door opened and Captain Harris walked in. Ryan's boss, a man I'd met exactly once at Ryan's promotion party. He didn't sit. He just looked at me for a long moment, then placed a file on the table. "Miss Carter," he said quietly, "the flash drive your brother claims you destroyed, we found it yesterday. In his locker, with his fingerprints all over it." My breath stopped. Captain Harris opened the file. Inside was the drive and a signed confession, Ryan's confession, admitting he'd hidden evidence, then built a false case against me to cover his tracks when internal affairs started asking questions. He thought arresting me publicly would force everyone to believe his story, that I'd take the fall to protect him, just like always, but I didn't. Captain Harris looked me in the eyes. "On behalf of this department, I am deeply sorry." Then he did something I'll never forget. He saluted me, a full formal salute, right there in that gray little room. Behind the glass, I found out later, Ryan was watching. forced to stand there while his captain, the man he idolized, honored the sister he tried to destroy. They uncuffed me, dropped all charges, offered a formal apology letter and compensation. But the real justice wasn't the money or the cleared record. It was the moment Ryan's world collapsed in front of him. The moment he realized his revenge didn't break me. It exposed him. I walked out of that station with my head high. Mom was waiting in the parking lot, crying happy tears this time. And Ryan? He lost his badge, his reputation, everything he'd sacrificed our relationship for. Sometimes the deepest betrayal comes from the people who swore to protect you. And sometimes the sweetest justice isn't revenge you take. It's the truth, finally catching the one who hurt you. I forgave Ryan eventually, not for him, for me. Because carrying hate for someone who was once your whole world, that's a heavier cuff than any medal. But I'll never forget the captain's salute. It reminded me, even when family fails you, your worth isn't decided by the ones who betray you. It's decided by the strength you find when you refuse to let their darkness win.